Hello and welcome to, I'm getting a little choked up. Welcome to Useful Idiots. I'm Katie Halper.
And I'm Aaron Maté, and this is Monday Morning, where we watch the Sunday morning news shows so that you don't have to. And you will be especially happy to say you did not watch the Sunday morning news shows because it is a solemn day, Katie.
It is.
It's a solemn day.
Sad, sad day. And we are not referring to it being 9/11.
No, this is much more tragic than
Much
9/11.
more tragic than that, yeah.
Yes.
Aaron, do you want to break the news of why today is such a solemn day? Why this is going to become the new 9/11?
Yeah, this is exactly. This is the new 9/11. Sorry to joke, but it's basically we've already said goodbye to fan favorite Brian Stelter, and we got through that. That was hard. But today we have another calamity facing the Useful Idiots community, and that is the departure of the one and only Chuckster. The steady hand, the rock of the show, the anchor of this show, really.
Yeah.
And all of our lives, all of our cable news diets is leaving us. And so today we bid him farewell. We bid farewell to Chuck Todd.
Farewell to Chuck Todd. I'm glad that we're here. It's good to not be alone in times like this. It's good to find solace and fellowship. So you're welcome, everyone.
It is good to have community.
Yeah.
And that's what we're here for, everybody.
Yeah.
So before we start, remember to go to usefulidiots.substack.com or usefulidiots.locals.com to support the show and get bonus content. And listen, we knew this day would come, so let's just get through it as we bid farewell to the Chuckster. Here he is with his final weekly summary for us.
Good Sunday morning. As you may have heard, after 9 years and more than 430 broadcasts, today is my final Sunday in the moderator chair. To say that this has been the honor and privilege of my lifetime is an understatement. This is simply the pinnacle of political journalism and something my younger self never imagined. No matter how much of a grind the current political climate is, wearing me down on any given day, I still always have had a pinch me, I can't believe it feeling every time I hear my name introduced as the moderator of the longest running show in the history of television. In fact, I used to joke, my goal is not to be the last moderator of the longest running show in American history. And I've achieved that goal and then some.
What does that even mean? He doesn't want the show to end when he leaves?
Yeah, he didn't want to bring down the show. He didn't want to be
okay, got it, yeah.
Captain of a sinking ship.
Right. Is that about himself or about the show? In other words, would it sink because of him or sink because of the show?
Great question.
I mean,
that's between Chuck and his therapist, but
yeah, you're right.
I appreciate him sharing that with us. I mean, it's good to share your fears.
It is, yeah.
I look forward to passing the baton in about 57 minutes. But in the meantime, we've put together a terrific program with a focus, or at least we're going to try to, on the future of both.
That's weird. It's very humble. He's really doing a lot of sharing. We've put together a terrific program, or at least tried to. What is this pseudo humility?
Political parties. And the guests we have today, California Governor Gavin Newsom and Louisiana Senator Bill Cassidy, are two I specifically wanted for my last show because I think these two elected officials have a healthy respect for you, the viewers and the voters. They aren't afraid of answering any question on any platform, on any network, by any person. They accept the premise of a healthy democracy, which is that elected officials take a stand and then come on shows where they get questioned for their rationales and defend it. I'm a skeptic.
That's also the premise for all that's also the basis for all of Chuck's journalism, which is accept the premise, right? So
yeah,
whatever the rulers say, he accepts the premise and stays within his narrow lane of limited tactical questions. Like, for example, with Ukraine, are we arming them enough? Are we sending the weapons fast enough? Not, should we be sending them weapons to begin with? Should we be pushing for peace talks? Chuck always accepts the premise.
Right.
So it's fitting that he wants to bring on guests that also share that outlook.
Also, it's funny because we're going to see some of his interview with Gavin Newsom, and all he does is obfuscate. He's not interested in as you'll see, in sharing the truth. being truthful, being put on the spot. So I have a feeling these were the only guests he could get, and he's pretending that he chose them on purpose.
By nature, which also makes me inquisitive by nature. And it's in that spirit
Hold
that
on, we got to rewind this a little bit. A little more sharing from Chuck.
I'm skeptic by nature.
Sorry, hold on. This is too good to miss. Okay.
Democracy, which is that elected officials take a stand and then come on shows where they get questioned for their rationales and defend it. I'm a skeptic by nature, which also makes me inquisitive by nature. And it's in
I feel like he's making a dating profile now or something. Skeptic by nature, inquisitive by nature. Gemini, love long walks on the beach.
I have a lot of time now.
Right.
that spirit that I think Meet the Press is the standard bearer when it comes to educating viewers and asking the relevant questions that you want asked. So as I prepare to sign off, it's interesting that both parties find themselves at a crossroads. Many leaders in both parties desperately want to start looking towards the future. But as you know, both parties are stuck in the present, and the voters are exhausted by it. For the Republicans, the issue is Trump and Trumpism. Does it belong in the past? Well, at an event on Friday night in South Dakota where he was endorsed by Governor Kristi Noem, Trump made it clear he does not intend to leave it there.
If I win and somebody wants to run against me, I call my attorney general. I say, listen, indict him. Well, he hasn't done anything wrong that we know of. I don't know. Indict him on income tax evasion. You'll figure it out. The Republicans in the Senate and the Republicans in the House cannot let this go on.
For the Democrats, the issue, of course, is Biden's age. In a CNN poll this week, nearly 7 in 10 Democrats said the party should nominate, quote, a different candidate than Joe Biden. And it was the biggest concern among 49% of all Democrats. The biggest concern was Biden's age. Overall, just 28% of Americans say Biden inspires confidence. That's down 24 points from 2 years ago when he was just 4 months into his presidency. This week, the Biden campaign released an ad highlighting his surprise visit to Ukraine in February, a not-so-subtle argument that he is physically up to the job.
A nearly 40-hour journey in and out of Ukraine.
President Biden left Washington, D.C. at 4 a.m. on Sunday. He landed in eastern Poland and then took a 9.5-hour train to Kyiv.
In the middle of a war zone, Joe Biden showed the world what America is made of. That's the quiet strength of a true leader.
Okay, this is so funny. This is what they are trying to use to show Biden's strength and stamina. The fact that he did this carefully managed photo op in Ukraine, and they're claiming that this was him going into a war zone.
Right.
As we've covered before, while the media was fawning over Joe Biden, saying what a brave thing it was in going to Ukraine, what actually happened was they told Russia ahead of time. Right. That was like the disclaimer that we got buried in some news report, but they told Russia ahead of time. And so basically all they're trumpeting Biden for here is making a long trip. Like he took 2 flights. They went to Poland and then somewhere else, and then he took a train. So yes, congratulations, Joe Biden. You did a long trip.
Yeah.
I trust it was okay on Air Force One, where you have a bedroom you can sleep in, and all that stuff. That's so funny that they're trying to make this now the centerpiece of his argument.
The length of his train visit. What's the word? Sorry, I'm a little sick right now, so I apologize. Of his train ride. That's the word I was looking for. I'm just so verklempt about. I said I'm sick, but really I'm just emotional about Chuck. It's like
they did this trip for a photo op, and then so many months later, now the photo op is a centerpiece of their ad campaign, arguing why Joe Biden has stamina. But
now it's paying off.
But for Chuck, I think it's interesting. He's comparing himself basically to the leaders of the Democratic and Republican parties, saying that he's passing the baton, he's stepping down. Why can't they? Which is fair point,
good question. Yeah. As Chuck goes, so should presidential candidates and presidents.
Yeah. Well, somebody who's not passing the baton is California Senator Dianne Feinstein, whose daughter,
what a shame,
whose daughter has power of attorney over her, who can barely function, but yet will not step down. And the reason is, it's pretty obvious at this point. The reason is Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, has promised to appoint a black woman in the event there's a vacancy in a California Senate seat. And an obvious candidate would be Barbara Lee, who's a Democratic member of Congress, who's also actually running for Senate right now. And Nancy Pelosi doesn't want Dianne Feinstein to step down because then Gavin Newsom would probably appoint Barbara Lee. And that would hurt the white man, Adam Schiff, who's running for that same seat as well. So to protect Adam Schiff, they're keeping Dianne Feinstein in the Senate seat. So Gavin Newsom was asked about this decision by Gavin about what he would do and about what Dianne Feinstein should do by Chuck Todd.
Senator here has her daughter apparently has power of attorney. She, as an elected official, has power of attorney over 40 million people's representation in Washington, D.C. Why should she still be serving as a senator?
Well, I leave it to her. I told you I'm the most subjective human being in the world on this topic. I have no objectivity whatsoever. I've known Dianne Feinstein since I was a kid. I interned with her in college, still have a signed book from my days when she was mayor. So
more like family to you.
Yeah.
Look at Chuck. He's getting so emotional. More like family to you.
You know, I'm the last person to ask.
This has been sad to watch.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe his subjectivity is the thing that's blocking him from doing the obviously responsible thing, which is letting her retire.
Yeah, it's like I'm so subjective. I love her so much.
I love her so much that I can't do anything about it.
Yeah, exactly. That I love her so much. I'm going to force her to stay in this awkward and really excruciating high-profile public position where she can't even understand where she is sometimes. Has to be told what to do because I love her so much. Yeah.
Right.
If you cared about Dianne Feinstein, you want her to like retire and like.
Exactly. Spend time with her family, not be humiliated when she tries to make these speeches when it's supposed to be yay or nay, and they're like, just say aye, just say aye.
I guess the lesson here is the Democratic Party establishment loves Adam Schiff so much that they're willing to put Dianne Feinstein through the terrible spectacle just to help his Senate chances.
They love elder abuse, whether it's Joe Biden or Feinstein or to be fair, so do the Republicans, as we know from Mitch McConnell. So I guess it's a bipartisan embrace of elder abuse.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, this is somebody whose obituary legacy is, I fear people are going to forget because of what we're watching here at the end.
But I'll tell you.
Whoa, weird Freudian slip. I fear her obituary is going to be tainted. I mean, legacy is going to be tainted. A little uncomfortable. But what he's saying is he doesn't want her legacy to be overshadowed by her years of incompetence and decrepitude. This is all about, notice that all the framing is about how this is going to affect Feinstein, not about like the people she has power over.
I mean, it wasn't that long ago where she would call me up, read me the Riot Act on issues related to forest management, vegetation management, what we're doing in the Central Valley on drought and water issues. Again, that wasn't the black and white movie days. That was not too long ago. Her staff is still extraordinarily active, and we wish her only the best. Her term expires.
So the good news is she used to be mentally competent, and it was in an era when there were not black and white movies. So it was a Technicolor era. And also, the great news is that she has a competent staff.
Her staff is on top of it.
Her staff is on top of it. On the ball, yeah.
It's so funny. I mean, talk about a gerontocracy where the best defense you have is that she has great staff around her telling her what to say. Yeah. The way they give her the instructions on what to say publicly, it's so crystal clear.
It's so crystal clear. Say aye. Just say aye. Say aye.
Yeah. She's not running for re-election.
Oh, well,
Katie, do you think Chuck is so worried about her legacy because that's just all that's on his mind today?
It could be his own
like
legacy.
Family, like MSNBC is family to me, and he's just worried about legacies today. And so that's a good
insight. That's a good insight, especially because we're doing so much psychoanalysis. Chuck, the Chuckster's just inviting that. Yeah.
Right. He's finally feeling empathy.
Yeah.
So this time next year, we'll be in a very different
Is it
place.
fair? Do you feel as if the staff is fulfilling, can do the duties?
Yes. I don't think it. I know it. We're working extraordinarily closely.
You don't
together.
feel as if the state's losing out?
Okay, so now we're just saying out loud, don't worry, the staff is a surrogate for this elected official. Like, they're not even pretending.
By not having a more active voice?
Maybe missing town halls or more active. But, Senator Padilla was just in the office a few days ago. We were comparing and contrasting issues and advocacy, and we're aligned with Feinstein in her office.
Sounds like you hope you don't have to make another appointment.
No, I don't want to make another appointment. I don't think the people of California want me to make another appointment.
Because you'd end up appointing both seats. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think that's, that said, it's my job, it's my responsibility. If we have to do it, we'll do it.
You're going to abide by your pledge?
Yeah, interim appointment. I don't want to get involved in the primary.
So no, you would not appoint anybody that is filed for this race? It would be
completely unfair to the Democrats that have worked their tail off. That primary is just a matter of months away. I don't want to tip the balance of that.
But you're going to abide by, it would be essentially a caretaker, an African-American woman.
We hope we never have to make this decision, but I abide by what I've said very publicly on a consistent basis, yes.
So a black woman, I don't like the black caretaker, by the way, the conflation of being a black woman and caretaker, but that's another story. But he is saying that he would abide by his commitment to name a black woman. And of course, as you pointed out, that's uncomfortable because they don't want to give Barbara Lee the upper hand because she's, barely, but she's more progressive especially in terms of foreign policy than Adam Schiff. She had the gall to criticize Biden for the cluster munitions, for instance.
And to her credit, one of the bravest things in U.S. political history, she voted against the endless war measure after 9/11 to authorize the so-called war on terror. Only member of Congress to vote against it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And even though, she's taken some positions since then that I think
like endorsing Kamala Harris, but it's a California thing, Yeah,
and also, voting for the proxy war in Ukraine, of course, with every other Democrat. That was an important vote that she did, and so she got so many vicious attacks. Anyway, but there's Gavin Newsom saying how he really does not want to have to make a decision. He really wants to respect democracy by keeping in the Senate a person who often has no idea where she is. That's somehow the best outcome for democracy.
Great staff.
Great staff.
And who needs town hall meetings anyway? By the way, good observation from Mob Entertainment Group. He sort of looks like Christian Bale from American Psycho. He does, yeah. How are we on likes, by the way? I hate to do this. Where are we at? You see, we were off last week for Labor Day, so I have to retrain you guys. Wilson.
I got 371 here.
That is pathetic.
On Chuck's last day?
On Chuck's last day. Have you no shame, to quote that guy who finally went after McCarthy, whose name I can't recall right now. Guys, we need at least half. I cannot go on without 500.
Like, do they not hear you guys call this the new 9/11? Is that...
Yeah,
do
seriously.
they have no shame of celebrating such a statement?
It is absolutely shameless. And I'm being generous by saying we can get to 500 because that's under 5. That's under 50%. And I know that not all of you are hate watching. Now, maybe some of you are new because you are here performing active duty to bid farewell to Chuck Todd. But we like these streams. That's what we do because we want to make sure that the people are aware of this, and it's a free way to support the show. Also, everyone should subscribe if you don't already subscribe. Another free way to support the show.
All right, we hit
Just
500.
hit subscribe and the bell. All right, great. Thank you. All right.
Okay, well, another person who has faced criticism over her job performance.
Oh, my God.
But for different reasons than Dianne Feinstein is Kamala Harris. And she went on Face the Nation where she faced some tough questions about her preparedness for serving in the job should Joe Biden not be able to carry out his duties and their overall bid for re-election. So Let's hear from the vice president.
Now, so you're 58 now. If you win a second term, as you and the president are running to do, he would be 86 at the end of it. And we are seeing Republican candidates.
Okay, why is, I guess she's pointing out she's 58 to point out that she won't die in office. It seems like the relevant thing is his age, not hers. But I guess she's saying that you're not going to go anywhere if you're it's kind of dark, honestly, if I'm being honest. But all right, let's hear what she has to say.
It's a dark day. I mean, Chuck's leaving.
It is a dark day. Chuck's leaving.
Everyone's getting existential.
Everyone's getting existential. We're talking about Dianne Feinstein's obituary. I mean, legacy. We're talking about Kamala's age, 58.
Hone in on you in particular. You and the president are running to do. He would be 86 at the end of it. And we are seeing Republican candidates hone in on you in particular as being next up for that job. Nikki Haley says
a vote for Joe Biden is a vote for President Kamala Harris.
Chris Christie.
I want to be clear that I pray every night for Joe Biden's good health, not only because he's our president, but because of who our vice president is.
Ron DeSantis.
Harris is his impeachment insurance. People know if she were president, Katie barred the door. As bad as Biden did, it would get worse.
I feel particularly attacked by that Katie barred the door comment.
I've never heard that term before.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I'm not sure the origin story of it, but obviously I feel a personal connection to it.
Katie barred the door. As bad as Biden did, it would get worse.
How do you respond to all of that?
We are delivering for the American people. And the reality of it is that, unfortunately, very few of those who would challenge our administration actually have a plan for America. You look at what we have accomplished, Margaret. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs in America, 13 million new jobs, unemployment at record lows. We have capped the cost of insulin for seniors at $35 a month, capped the cost of prescription drugs on an annual basis at $2,000.
They're talking
for
about
seniors.
What you would do as president as being a risk. They're honing in on you. Why do you think that is? How do you respond to those
That was so
attacks?
awkward. Good credit. Good, like, shout out to Face the Nation. I'm sure there was pressure to cut that awkward shot of Kamala Harris not having anything to say. Hold on. They're honing in on you.
Why do you think that is? How do you respond to those attacks? That's not about policy. That's about you.
Listen, this is not new. There's nothing new about that. I mean, listen, in my career, I was a career prosecutor. I was the first woman elected district attorney of San Francisco, a major city in this country, and reelected. I was the first woman attorney general of the second largest Department of Justice in the United States and reelected. I was a United States Senator. I represented 1 in 8 Americans, and I'm now Vice President of the United States. They feel the need to attack because they're scared that we will win based on the merit of the work that Joe Biden and I and our administration has done.
You know what that reminds me of? You see the movie, what's the movie with James Franco about Korea?
Oh, The Interview?
The Interview, yeah. Remember, they hate us because they ain't us. I feel like she's channeling that.
You know, like when I hear her, just a side note, but like when I hear her brag about how many jobs they've created, does that mean that you do believe that there is a place for the government to create jobs, right? Because like I always hear from these same people that, you know, we love the free market, everything. You know, this is more of a Republican thing, but Democrats do this too. You know, we love the free market, American enterprise. But if you're saying you created all these jobs, like why not even create even more? You know, like Mitch McConnell said recently that, you know, a reason why we should support the Ukraine proxy war is that it's creating good American jobs, like because we're spending all this money on weapons made here at home. So does that mean, you know, even Republicans too see a place for the government to create jobs? And if so, why not create jobs for everybody, including on things that don't have to do with killing people
Right. That would be amazing. No, I mean, I think to be fair to the Democrats, at least to their talking points, they don't embrace the free market. If anything, the problem is they pretend not to embrace it, but they kind of embrace it. Whereas Republicans embrace it rhetorically. But what Democrats love touting are public-private partnerships. In fact, we'll see her doing that soon.
All right. Well, let's hear more from Kamala.
Delivering on promises. You, in your portfolio, have tackled the issue of the root cause of migration. U.S. Customs and Border.
Okay, she hasn't tackled the issue of root problems. She's said she's tackling the issue of root problems. That's like her buzzword that she loves going back to, even in this interview. But she loves, that's such a great way of deflecting and trying to sound like you're smart and getting at the root causes of the issue. And as we've talked about in this show, the root causes of the issue have to do with things like sanctions, destabilizing those regions, politically, economically. Those are the things that cause people to flee. And she's doing absolutely nothing about that. Some of the issues that cause people to flee.
Border Patrol saw a record number of migrant families cross the border in the month of August. This despite that record level of heat. Why is that happening now? You've rolled out new policies.
Around the globe, we are seeing an increase in irregular migration. And there are a number of factors at play. An increase in authoritarian regimes, what we're seeing in terms of extreme weather occurrences, what we're seeing in terms of, in many places around the globe, increasing food insecurity. So there are many reasons for why this is happening, and America is not immune to that. The point.
Yes, America's not immune to the, surge in migrants because America is fueling it by, for example, having 30% of the world's population. This came out in a study from the Center for Economic Policy Research earlier this year. 30% of the world's population lives under U.S. sanctions.
Right.
An amazing figure. 30% of the world population lives under U.S. sanctions. And sanctions, of course, as they're designed to target economies.
Right. And regular people, not the people in power, not the elite. The elites, right.
Ordinary people, and denies people food, for example, by design.
Medicine. Yeah.
Yeah, everything. So when your country's economy is being destroyed, naturally, you're going to want to flee to a place where it's not destroyed and where you have actual opportunities to support yourself and not be denied the basics that you need to survive.
Yeah.
And that's one of the U.S. driven factors that we can never acknowledge here because that speaks to a root cause that we're responsible for.
Right. And good. This is good from Mob Entertainment Group. Another good comment. The root causes of mass migration to the West are corporate wars and corporate looting of their nations. This isn't new either. That's one of them. Yeah. And sanctions. Okay. Let's keep going.
It has to be then to understand what we must do to deal with, one, ensuring that we have a secure, humane and orderly policy about the border, but also what we must do in the long term to address the root causes of migration. The work that I've been doing in that regard has been to build public-private partnerships to the extent that we have now raised over $4 billion to invest in the countries in that region.
But that migration data, according to CBP, is showing migrants from Guatemala are up, Honduras, Ecuador, Peru. So when the border crossings went down earlier in the summer, the administration said it was due to your policies.
So, one of the countries on that list, Honduras.
Right.
What happened there? Well, it was 2009. So not that long ago, the U.S. backed a coup, which brought in a new government that has led to even worse governments, including like a narco regime.
Yeah,
that the U.S. supported,
and they had the gall, Hillary Clinton, to say it wasn't a coup, even though everyone knew it was a coup.
Yeah, and they couldn't call it a coup because if they called it a coup, that would have suspended U.S. aid or U.S. assistance. But of course, they supported the coup, so they wanted to keep that assistance going.
Right.
So whenever there is actually a coup, but the U.S. supports the coup government, the U.S. finds creative ways to avoid calling it a coup. So that's what happened there. So, you can go on down the list.
And it became a huge booming femicide industry.
Yeah,
and
right.
became the capital of Honduras turned into like it earned the nickname of the murder capital of the world.
Yeah. Okay. Is this enough, Kamala, you think?
I think so.
Yeah.
Have we put you through enough, fam?
All right. Well, there is that thing going on called the war in Ukraine, and Anthony Blinken.
Oh God! Trigger warning, guys. Blinken, the worst.
Is fresh back from the G20 meeting where the U.S. struggled to get people on board to its narrative of just solely blaming Russia and marshaling global support for continuing this war. So Anthony Blinken spoke to ABC.
But let me move on to your time in Ukraine. You spent quite a bit of time with President Zelenskyy. What is your sense? How does he see this ending? Does he see himself coming to a negotiating table with the Russians at some point? How does this end?
Whoa, he's suggesting there would be an end to this. That's not patriotic.
Yeah, I love how it's like diplomacy is so forbidden here, even discussing it. So even asking the question, he's like, he can't ask a direct question. So like, is there a plan to end this war? Are you pushing for diplomacy?
Right.
It's more subjective. Like, so it's like you spoke to Zelenskyy. Like, what's his deal? Like, how does he perceive this maybe ending? Or
not like, are you as a diplomat going to engage in diplomacy?
Yeah. Like, what did Zelenskyy say? What did he tell you about the war maybe ending or not? Should we just keep this going forever? Why not?
What are his feels?
Yeah.
Well, first, I found both President Zelenskyy and every Ukrainian that I met, whether it was folks in the government or whether it was many other Ukrainians that we had a chance to engage with over the course of 2 days, incredibly resilient, incredibly courageous, incredibly resolute. And ultimately, that's really what's at the heart of this and the reason that I remain very confident in Ukraine's ultimate success, which is that they're fighting for their country, for their future, for their freedom. The Russians are not. And keep in mind, Putin has already lost in what he was trying to achieve. He was trying to erase Ukraine from the map and its independence, subsume it into Russia. That has already been a failure. Now, where exactly this settles?
This is a talking point that Blinken says a lot. No one ever challenges him on it, but it's so false. You don't have to support Russia's invasion to recognize that the goal was not to subsume all of Ukraine into Russia. Russia sent less than 200,000 forces into Ukraine. You can't subsume an entire country with the force deployment that the U.S. sent and that Russia sent, and you can't do it when you don't, like, for example, do what the U.S. does in Iraq, which is like bomb the capital immediately and take out sanitation, power, all the things that the U.S. does when it's invading a country. Russia didn't do that because its aim was actually to have negotiations to get its basic concerns addressed, including implementation of the Minsk Accords, which Ukraine refused to address, and also have Ukraine declare neutrality, so not join NATO and be able to place offensive weapons inside its borders to threaten Russia. Those are Russia's goals.
Right. But they can't say that because the way you deal with those things are diplomacy. And they would pretend that this is an existential genocidal threat to Ukraine and Hitlerian in nature, basically, is always the subtext.
And the evidence for the fact that Russia wanted to basically use force to force the diplomacy that the U.S. and Ukraine have rejected before is found in the fact that before the war, Russia presented draft treaties, and after the war, there were immediately negotiations. But we know what happened, except if you watch corporate news in the U.S. because they won't tell you that there was a peace deal reached in the early weeks, but the West blocked it to continue the war. And people don't know that because it's literally never ever reported on ABC News, but it happened. And Jens Stoltenberg, who was the NATO Secretary General, he just recently said, just last week, said that Russia invaded because they did not want NATO encroaching on its borders.
Was he drunk? How did he say that? Was he given a truth serum?
Well, sometimes they admit the truth. You know, it's hard to keep this deception going for so long. So this idea, and also, by the way, you know, the rebel-held areas of Ukraine in the Donbass, right? The areas that Russia supports. In 2014, the rebel leaders staged these referendums calling for separation from Ukraine to join Russia. And, the international community obviously questioned these referendums, not calling them legitimate, which is probably true. These were done under war conditions. But the point is, the rebel leaders claimed that the votes went in favor of separating from Ukraine and joining Russia. But Russia, rather than accepting these votes, said no, we'd rather have dialogue inside of Ukraine and have basically the Donbass stay a part of Ukraine. So if Russia wanted to 8 years ago, it could have seized on these votes and said, yeah, we're going to take Ukraine. But they didn't. They actually tried to go through the diplomatic process. And finally, after 8 years, they abandoned that and resorted to brute force and annexed these regions. But if they really wanted to, annex these regions, they would have done that 8 years ago and not try to go through diplomacy first.
Right.
But Blinken doesn't want diplomacy, so hence he has to distort that history.
Right. Disgusting.
Where lines are drawn, that is going to be up to Ukrainians. But I've found a strong determination to continue to work to get their territory back that's been seized by Russia. And as to negotiations, John, it takes two to tango. Sure. And thus far, we see no indication that Vladimir Putin has any interest in meaningful diplomacy. If he does, I think the Ukrainians will be the first to engage, and we'll be right behind them. Everyone wants this war to end, but it has to end on just terms and on durable terms that reflect Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity.
What a shameful lying sack of excrement. We know that the U.S. pressured, as you just said, Ukraine out of negotiating. And then they're going to turn around and pretend that there was no negotiations possible.
Yeah. I mean, maybe he's correct now that Russia is no longer interested in diplomacy. Maybe that's true now. But if that is true, that can only be the case because the U.S. has undermined diplomacy at every turn, before the invasion and afterward. But that's the part you can't admit on establishment news. So people are left in the dark about it. And Blinken can get away with saying it.
Right,
but
because no one will fact check him.
Yeah. But maybe one day somebody will ask Antony Blinken, what happened to that peace deal that was reached in April 2022? What did you say to Zelenskyy to get him to abandon it? I'd love to see that question asked.
I wouldn't hold my breath on that.
Yeah.
Because
it's the kind of thing where, so many times the U.S. will deny playing a role in a coup or undermining diplomacy. Right. And then whatever, years later, we'll get the truth. Right. Like in Pakistan, we cover this in Useful Idiots. The U.S. denied having any part in the ouster of Imran Khan. But then a year later, The Intercept reports of this Pakistani cable saying that the U.S. ambassador pressured Pakistan to remove him. All would be forgiven if they did that. Yeah. So maybe we'll get something similar when it comes to what happened with the peace deal and the U.S. role in blocking it. But for now, we get more of Antony Blinken. So here's what else he said.
Last question. We understand that the United States is considering sending those long-range missiles that Ukraine has been asking for a long time. These are long-range missiles, 200 miles in range. Are you okay if those missiles allow Ukraine to attack deep into Russian territory?
John, first.
So what John Carl's referring to here is this new report from ABC News, actually, that the U.S. is going to be sending to Ukraine yet another advanced weapon system that previously the U.S. had ruled out. In this case, ATACMS, which are long-range missiles. And in June 2022, Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, said that Biden is not ready to send ATACMS because he wants to avoid the road to a third world war. That's what Jake Sullivan said. Fast forward to now, and that road is no longer closed because now the U.S. is reportedly sending these ATACMS, and they have a range of 190 miles, and they can hit inside Crimea and maybe inside mainland Russia as well. And it looks like that's what Ukraine will be getting. And so
they're now Third World War curious.
Exactly.
We have had an ongoing conversation, engagement almost daily with Ukrainians from the very start of the Russian aggression about what they need, when they need it, and all along we've worked bringing together dozens of countries to make sure that they have in hand what they need to defend themselves. And that's been a moving picture. It's been moving with the conflict itself, from trying to make sure they were defending Kyiv, which they did so successfully early on, to now trying to take back more of their territory in the south and in the east. And so at any given time, we're looking, and part of the reason that I was in Ukraine again was to hear directly from President Zelenskyy. He'd just been to the front lines, their perspective on how things were going and what it is that they needed to be successful, all of which I report back to my colleagues in Washington. But I think it's a mistake to focus on any given system, because what's so important is for anything that we do and other countries do in support of Ukraine, it's not only the weapon system itself, it's are Ukrainians trained on it? Are they able to maintain it? Can they use it effectively as part of their strategy? And we are working on that every single day. In terms of their targeting decisions,
why is it
their
why
decision?
Why that's such a weird dodge and like distraction? Like, why should we shouldn't focus on the systems because we should be looking at the training? Is he suggesting like it doesn't count until we train them on it?
Any given system.
Any given system. Why focus on that?
Yeah. Like there's an Oliver Stone movie, Any Given Sunday.
Right.
The Biden movie could be Any Given System.
Don't focus on it.
But listen to what he says here, because he's going to address the question of, does the U.S. have any role in, after giving these advanced systems to Ukraine, does it maybe prevent Ukraine from hitting deep inside Russia to avoid an escalation? And previously, Biden has said with other weapon systems that Ukraine gave us concrete assurances that they will not hit inside Russia. Well, he's going to change his tune now. Listen to this.
To maintain it, can they use it effectively as part of their strategy? And we are working on that every single day. In terms of their targeting decisions, it's their decision, not ours.
Well, did you
as a general matter, we haven't encouraged or.
Did you bring up? I mean, we.
So that's a shift, because previously Blinken has said that we stop Ukraine from hitting inside of Russia. Now he's saying it's their decision, not ours.
Right. Ukrainian agency.
Yeah. And again, theoretically, does Ukraine have the right to hit inside Russia, given that Russia's invading it? Of course it does. The question is, should the U.S. play a role in that? And are there alternatives to sending these advanced weapon systems that escalate the war or escalate Ukraine's capacity to hit Russia?
And move us closer to World War III.
Yeah. I mean, is this a law of nature that we have to just keep fueling the war like this? Well, how about diplomacy? How about doing what Anthony Blinken's job description is, which is to be a diplomat? And for the first 6 months of the war, this the Washington Post reported this. Blinken's motto when it comes to Russia was, quote, "Do not engage." So basically, do not do my job and try to engage in diplomacy, because the U.S. aim in Ukraine is not to defend Ukraine and end the war as quickly as possible. It's to bleed Russia.
Right.
To use
Which
Ukraine.
We know
to
they've
bleed
said
Russia,
that out loud. Yeah.
as they've admitted so many times. So that's why you have this drip feed of weapon systems. Has nothing to do with Ukraine's battlefield needs. Like Blinken there saying that, the reason why he's suggesting the reason why we're giving them the ATACMS now is because, we've heard their concerns, and I'm very attentive to Zelenskyy. I'm listening to what he's saying. So now we're going to give them the ATACMS. Ukraine's been begging for ATACMS forever.
Right.
But the problem is, given that the U.S. goal is solely to use Ukraine to weaken Russia, if you do this drip feed of slowly giving Ukraine these weapon systems, you increase the chances of prolonging the war.
Right.
So that's why they're coming in now. That's the only consideration here. It's nothing to do with Ukraine's battlefield needs, because if actually Blinken really cared, as he says, about what Ukraine wants, he would have given these ATACMS a long time ago.
Right. Disgusting.
We've seen an increasing number of attacks on Russian territory by Ukrainian drones, some in Moscow, Rostov-on-the-Don just a couple of days ago. Did you bring that up? Are you okay with? I mean, obviously, it's their decisions, but is this war now escalating into Russia?
John, we haven't encouraged and we haven't enabled any use of weapons outside of Ukraine's territory.
How have you not enabled it by definition?
Take a step back for a second. virtually every single day, the Russians are attacking indiscriminately throughout the entire country of Ukraine. Just during the 48 hours that I was there, going in, more missiles were launched at civilian targets, including in Kyiv. While I was there, a horrific attack on a marketplace. People just going to buy food. Civilians had nothing to do with this war. Killed 17 people. This is the daily life for Ukrainians. This is what they face every single day. So they have to make the basic decisions about how they're going to defend their territory and how they're working to take back what's been seized from them. Our role, the role of dozens of other countries around the world that are supporting them, is to help them do that. And ultimately, what we all want is an end to this Russian aggression, and an end to the aggression that, again, is just and is durable. That's what Ukrainians want more than anyone else. That's what we're working toward.
By blocking diplomacy at every turn. And let's assume all the allegations he said there against Russia and these recent strikes are true. Let's say they're all correct. I mean, the question is, do you want to continue fueling this war with all these horrible atrocities, or do you want to do what you can to try to bring it to an end and maybe try the diplomacy that you've undermined to date? And maybe it wouldn't work anymore. I don't know. But why not try?
And just acknowledge that you got in its way before. Just be honest about it.
Absolutely. Okay, let's skip ahead to...
Also, when he says that they haven't enabled them, they literally have enabled them.
Yes.
By providing them with the weapons.
Yeah.
Like, definitionally.
Well, let's go to Blinken on another network, on CNN, where Jake Tapper...
Oh, this is
CNN anchor. This is a good one. Jake Tapper is livid because, according to a new book, Elon Musk, the oligarch, who
had a third child with Grimes. Oh no, that's not it. Okay.
No, it's not that. No,
that's not the thing he talks about. Yeah.
But Elon Musk, who owns this thing called Starlink, which provides communication services, internet for the Ukrainian military from space, I guess. He was asked to enable Starlink for a Ukrainian assault on Crimea, and Elon Musk turned that down. And so proxy war advocates like Jake Tapper are livid about this because Musk single-handedly stood in the way of escalation, which of course is anathema to proxy warriors who want escalation, even maybe World War III. So Jake Tapper confronted Anthony Blinken about this.
CEO Elon Musk, SpaceX CEO Elon Musk has recently confirmed a report that's in Walter Isaacson's new biography of Musk that last year Musk blocked access to his Starlink satellite network in Crimea in order to disrupt a major Ukrainian attack on the Russian Navy there. In other words, Musk effectively sabotaged a military operation by Ukraine, a U.S. ally, against Russia, an aggressor country that invaded a U.S. ally. Should there be repercussions for that?
Jake, I can't speak to a specific episode. Here's what I can tell you. Starlink has been a vital tool for the Ukrainians to be able to communicate with each other, and particularly for the military to communicate in their effort to defend all of Ukraine's territory. It remains so, and I would expect it to continue to be critical to their efforts. So what we would hope and expect is that that technology will remain fully available to the Ukrainians. It is vital to what they're doing.
I don't know that you can't speak to it. You won't speak to it. Musk says he was reportedly afraid that Russia would retaliate with nuclear weapons. Musk says that's based on his private discussions he had with senior Russian officials. Are you concerned that Musk is apparently conducting his own diplomatic outreach to the Russian government? Really, none of this concerns you?
Jake, I can't speak to...
So Jake is not concerned at the prospect of nuclear war.
No.
He's concerned that someone else is concerned at the prospect of nuclear war and making decisions accordingly. And yet, look, is it weird and unfortunate that like one person, this billionaire tech oligarch, has like control over a major aspect of the war? Yeah, that's an indictment of capitalism, you know?
And that's, of course, not his indictment.
Yeah.
That's not his criticism, I like the way also he says, it's not that you can speak to it, you won't speak to it. Again, we always see the adversarial journalism over the worst points.
Yeah, exactly. It's only when an official is not being sufficiently bellicose. Then
Right,
that's
exactly.
when the cable news anchor can get in their face and say,
Right.
you know, accuse them of being soft and
Right.
appeasing Russia. It's never, for example, hey, why aren't we having diplomacy? And why did you undermine a
Right.
peace deal back when it was reached, you know, over a year ago?
Right.
You can't
It's
have
not
that.
that you can't. It's not that you couldn't negotiate. It's that you wouldn't negotiate.
Yeah. No, you
for
would
instance.
never ever see that. No.
Conversations that may or may not have happened, I don't know. I'm focused on the fact that the technology itself, Starlink, has been really important to the Ukrainians. It remains so. And it should continue to be part of what they're able to call on to be able to communicate with themselves, and again, to have the military be able to communicate. Throughout this Russian aggression, you know, we ourselves have always had to factor in what Russia may do in response to any given thing that we or others do or the Ukrainians do, and we have. But what's so critical now is that Ukraine has had real success over the past year. I was just in Ukraine, as you know.
Jake Tapper is indignant. He is so upset that Elon Musk may have prevented an attack on Crimea. He cannot believe it.
Yeah.
And again, Crimea is where Russia has its most important naval fleet. It was used to be a part of Russia for a long time, but then under the Soviet Union in the 1950s, it was transferred to Ukraine. And after the coup of 2014, the U.S.-backed coup, Russia took it immediately without firing a shot, because actually most people there support being a part of Russia. And Russia was not going to give up. It was not going to risk losing its most important naval base to a coup government that was talking about joining NATO.
Right.
And so since then, there's been, you know, all this talk about trying to get it back. And
that was outlawing like Russian languages and.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. That was certainly cracking down on the Russian language. And anyway, Jake Tapper is not pleased. He's not pleased with Elon Musk. He's not happy with Antony Blinken.
He doesn't have a very good poker face.
No.
I mean, neither do I, but I don't have his job. Yeah.
Okay. Ukrainian President Zelenskyy, he spoke to Fareed Zakaria. And let's hear some of that.
Do you think Putin is stronger today or weaker after Prigozhin, after everything?
I think he is, my thoughts, that is the real face of him. That is real face. There are the answers. How he see his life, the life of people, how he see what will be tomorrow. How he control. And you will find in this, in one case with Prigozhin, you can find, and even Lula, he can also find for himself, and such partners, they can find all the answers.
Just see the way he handled Prigozhin.
Yes, that is the answer. How Putin control everything, he control only people's minds, but he doesn't control what's going on in the country. He doesn't.
I mean, I don't understand. Isn't the narrative that he had this guy killed, first of all?
Yeah.
And he definitely, regardless of the narrative, he put down that mutiny.
Yeah. I don't quite get what the message is here, but we'll see. Maybe a little more will help clarify.
It's not, it also kind of, I mean, look, I don't speak Ukrainian or Russian, but it has a kind of slam poetry vibe to it, what Zelenskyy is saying.
He understood that a big part of society supports Prigozhin, what he did. He killed him. But before he killed, he gave him promises. The territory of Belarus, gave him new locations, the Africa issues and businesses, a lot of different things.
So he lied to Prigozhin. Yeah.
Yes, of course. That's, and that is the answer. When you want to have compromises or dialogue with somebody, you can't do it with a liar.
Okay, so that's what this is. So basically, Zelenskyy is saying that because Putin lied to Prigozhin, then Zelensky can't negotiate with Putin. You can't compromise with a liar. There's some problems with this narrative in that Prigozhin launched a mutiny against Russia's government. Now, Prigozhin said this wasn't directed at Putin. This was, and again, Prigozhin's problem was that the war in Ukraine was not being prosecuted aggressively enough.
Right, it was too slow.
Prigozhin wanted even more force by Russia inside of Ukraine.
Right.
And that was his, and also his militia, his private mercenary force, Wagner, was being subsumed into Russia's military. And he didn't want that.
He didn't like that.
So he led this revolt, and then he got killed. And let's assume Putin is behind it. That doesn't really help Zelensky's case. You can't that somehow you can't trust Putin because, again, we're talking about a mutiny inside his own country. So he's probably going to respond in some way to that. Right. I don't get how you can I don't get how you can go from saying because Putin responded to this mutiny against him by, let's say he did it, killing the leader of it, then he can't make a deal with Russia. I don't see the connection.
Well, his argument his argument is that he is a liar. It's not that he killed him per se, right? Although that's a big part of it, but it's that he lied. And if he's a liar, you can't negotiate with him.
Okay. Well, has Zelensky ever lied? For example, I mean,
he ran
I mean, there's many examples, but for example, the former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, he asked Putin, he said, are you going to kill Zelensky? Right. And Putin told him no. And then but Bennett told this to Zelensky. And after that, Zelensky made some video saying he wasn't afraid of being killed by Putin, that he was bravely defying Putin, even though Putin wanted to kill him. Right. He made the video because he knew that actually Putin didn't want to kill him.
Right, exactly. So, he's like, I'm not afraid of being killed by Putin because Putin said he won't kill me.
Yeah, and
that's not what he said. Yeah.
Politicians generally are liars. They lie. So if that's going to be the new standard for making a deal, then we'll never have any diplomacy ever. Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, we're running short on time, so
should we skip to the Chucksters sign off?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to say
we can do some of these. Maybe we'll do some of these on Thursday Throwdown, which you guys can access if you become members at usefulidiots.substack.com or usefulidiots.locals.com.
And let's go to the Chucksters sign off.
Grab some tissue.
On the job at Meet the Press. On my first day on the job at Meet the Press, I was handed an audience survey of Sunday show viewers. And the number one reason folks said they tuned in was not because of who the person was behind the chair or the guests. It was simply to get educated. So for nearly a decade, I've had the honor of helping to explain America to Washington and Washington to America, as Kristen just quoted me about. And it's that education piece that I'm hanging my hat on for the rest of my professional life. One thing we all lament lately, is the lack of knowledge and nuance in our politics and citizenship. That's a vacuum I hope to continue to fill, whether in our continued news coverage here at NBC or via other venues like docuseries and docudramas focused on bridging our divides, piercing these political bubbles. And I will continue, of course, to be a big part of NBC's political coverage because, as Tom Brokaw said to me, he says, look, some networks do some things well, but nobody does politics like NBC. And he was referring back all the way to David Brinkley. And that is sort of the tradition I've always sent from Brinkley to Russert. And that's the stuff I want to carry on. That's the stuff Kristen's going to carry on. I also could not have done this job for the last 9 years without the team that you don't see on television. The producers, the control room, the crew, the editors, the artists who make the show look like an incredible production every week. I get up early, and they get up earlier. Television is a team sport, and I'm proud to be a member of this team and stay a member of this team, even as a spectator, a cheerleader, and an advisor. So that's all for today. Thanks for watching and for so many years of loyalty to me and to this show. I'm happy to say my colleague Kristen Welker is going to be here next week because it doesn't matter who sits in this chair. If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
Cheerleader. He outed himself as a cheerleader.
Okay, that's cool.
Right? He actually described himself as a cheerleader.
Yeah, which is an accurate description, at least when it comes to,
war.
The establishment. And war. Yeah. Well, he did do a perfect job of constraining discussion to the parameters set by the establishment. constantly trumpeting milquetoast politics, never challenging wars, denigrating progressives when he had to, and then when progressives, towed the line, then rewarding them with guest appearances.
Right.
So he did. He really did his job well, and we'll miss him. We really will miss him.
We will. Yeah, he did his job. I mean, probably one of the biggest parts of his job was providing us with laughs, with fodder. I don't know what we're going to do without him.
Now, listen, we need to play one more clip, which, Wilson, is clip number 9.5, because it does represent where corporate news is at, the kind of corporate news that Chuck Todd represented. And this happened at the very end of Zelensky's interview with Fareed Zakaria. And just watch this exchange. So they're sharing a laugh, and then watch what happens.
Mr.
Oh, yeah, this is good.
Mr. President, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Got to go get back to the war.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Let's watch that again. They're sharing a laugh, and then Fareed says
back to the war.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Got to go get back to the war.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yes, we're in a very serious war, but there's time to share a hearty laugh. But now it's time to go back to the war.
Right.
Now it's time to get back to the war. So Zelensky's going to hop in a tank. After shaking Fareed, he's going to hop in a tank and get back to the war.
I would have preferred a fist bump, honestly, if I'm being honest. That would have been more festive, more appropriate.
Well, we're going to go back to the war now, everybody. And we're going to try to recuperate from the loss of the Chuckster.
Yeah, this is our own war. Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Our own war.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, again, usefulidiots.substack.com or usefulidiots.locals.com. And we'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone. Thanks so much for watching.